All right. Our last speaker for the evening, but please stay a little bit after because we're going to do a few more things and then mingle. Our last speaker of the evening is Bruce Perth. Bruce is a domestic adoptee born in Chicago at the end of the baby scoop era. He is passionate about promoting truth and transparency in adoption and hopes to give back to the community by raising awareness of the complex challenges that come with relinquishment. He recently had a poem published in the book Adoption and Suicidality by Beth Severson and Joseph Nakan. Tonight he will be reading his piece, To Breathe or Not to Breathe.
Thank you. So, as Elsie said, this is called To Breathe or Not to Breathe. And I'm going to try to breathe through it. Breathers are encouraged to breathe until surprised. And I was. As the deep circular breathing became automatic and effortless, the loud, evocative music and gentle touch from my sitter led me deep into my body and into an altered state. It seemed to take forever to get there, as if I had to navigate a labyrinth of winding, uncharted paths. In front of me, I saw the ethereal image of my first mom, glowing with divine feminine energy. The last time I saw her alive was in '98, about 4 years before her untimely death. Her image was vivid as she reached out to take my hand, her other hand reaching far off into the distance to a realm I have never been able to touch on my own. This hand was firmly connected to a universal source of infinite love. My spirit, mind, and body aligned as the energy from this inexhaustible source flowed effortlessly through my mom to the union of our hands, down my arm, and directly into the gaping hole in my heart. I always knew this hole was there and spent decades doing whatever was necessary to resist its gravitational pull or deny its existence with an array of numbing opportunities. It felt safe now to open this channel as wide as I could and do a remarkable thing. Receive love without fear. In sacred silence, the energy flowed while my adoptive mom sat far off to the side, witnessing what she was never capable of doing, something so essential for life to thrive. I felt decades of deep longing being satiated and realized that the void inside me was too big to fill in one session. The music in the room tapered from thumping tribal beats and chants to slower rhythms and eventually to the gentlest trickle of flowing water as the facilitator softly announced the closure of the 80-minute session. In my search for healing, I had found my way to holotropic breathwork, a powerful therapeutic technique developed by Stanislav Grof that uses deep circular breathing to induce an altered state of consciousness, to access past trauma and enable deep emotional healing. Holotropic means moving towards wholeness, and this was my quest. Each breather has a partner or sitter chosen in advance to assist with the process. After a brief break, the breathers and sitters swap roles for another session. After some time to reorient to the room, bring our bodies back to the present, and draw our mandalas, the group gathered in a circle to share and integrate our experiences. I looked around the room at the transformed, loving faces of my fellow journeyers as they told their stories, and I had a revelation. This experience of downloading love energetically is exactly the innate gift that every infant receives from the universe through the irreplaceable mother they are born to, within the loving context of their intimate physical presence, unless, of course, that essential connection is abruptly severed by relinquishment and adoption. I felt astonished and grateful for the insight and the opportunity to finally receive this long overdue love that was always my birthright. In setting my attention for my next session a month later, I looked forward to meeting my mom again. But something Stan Grof once said about holotropic breathwork would serve as foreshadowing. Never pass up an opportunity for death and dismemberment. As the music grew in intensity, the room and the people in it slipped from my awareness. Behind my blindfold, there was only the breath, the music, the presence of my sitter, and the courageous descent into the unknown. I was venturing into new and vulnerable territory and was suddenly confronted by my fiercest protector parts. My relationship to my protectors was still precarious, and I tried to reassure my system by naming the parts and cultivating curiosity. I was overwhelmed by a strong impulse to stand up on my mat and drive a knife into my gut. The imagery was violent and disturbing. Listening closely to my body, I positioned myself on my knees, clasped my hands together, and pounded my pillow in broad, sweeping arcs to disrupt the grip of these protectors. I soon found myself in the family room of the house I grew up in, the house I was delivered to at 10 days old by Lutheran Social Services. The room was darker than I ever remembered. I realized the young boy sitting on the floor in front of me was me at the age of 5 or 6. He didn't engage me except to motion back and forth with his extended index finger pointing in the direction of my childhood bedroom next to the family room. Without emotion, he repeated, go back, in a mantra-like tone. I interpreted his role as my guide and proceeded with curious trepidation to my childhood bedroom. There, I found my 8-year-old self, but the visit was uneventful. Returning to my guide, he kept pointing, go back, go back further. My sense of linear time then surrendered to the pace of the journey and the unfolding imagery inside me, more real now than imaginary. Maintaining my deep breathing, the landscape of darkness suddenly expanded, as if I had fallen into the secret hidden basement of a building that I never knew existed, filling me with a sensation of immobility. I knew I must return to my bedroom, but the terror felt like stepping into a bloody war zone. Knowing I didn't have the inner strength to do this alone, I clenched both of my sitter's hands with a desperate grip as I prepared to dredge my way forward. I could barely hold the intensity of the emotion. With the support of my sitter and the trust I had in the safety of the setting, I claimed just enough courage to enter the room. The atmosphere felt impossibly dense, dark, and dynamic. In my peripheral vision, I noticed the crib I used as an infant. Instinctively, I didn't look down into it. I was met with shock and horror as my gaze caught red splatters on the wall just above the crib. My mind couldn't process what also appeared to be splattered guts clinging to the wall amidst the streaks of red. Meanwhile, a war raged around me as I realized something dark and sinister took place here. It took a while longer for my reeling, exhausted mind to comprehend it was me that it happened to. A new sense of empowerment began breaking into my body as an unfamiliar but welcome force rose up to my throat. I looked up and out to the world and yelled over and over with a boldness I never believed I had. Can you see me? Can you see what happened to me? It was the first time that this mortally wounded part of me was seen, taken seriously, and fiercely defended. At the same time, I was confronted with the reality of the annihilation and the terrifying question, how do I put these dismembered pieces back together? During the integration afterward, I realized that this session allowed me to fully step into myself in a way that had never been possible before. I was able to witness but not relive the experience as a repeating loop of re-traumatization that intruded in my daily life without my conscious understanding or control. I was finally separate from it, unblended in the role of fierce, empathic witness. The sense of immobility yielded to a new sense of safety and expansiveness within my body. The session had given me a rare and vivid glimpse into my deepest, most hidden truth. Now I knew what it meant to be adopted. With measured expectations, I entered the next session a month later, letting the breath take me where I needed to go. As alternating waves of joy and grief washed through me, a phrase began reverberating within me. I don't want to be alone. It wasn't just loneliness. No, it was alone, with nothing, no foundation, no ground, no air, no hand to hold, no heart to attune to. Alone meant falling into the abyss, untethered to anything, with nothing to grab hold of or orient to, nothing to stop my fall, and the inescapable feeling that I would be falling forever. In the absence of any perceived love, there is only chronic terror and the anticipation of impending doom. Faces began coming into view, people who were there for me, who were able to find me in the darkness. "I can't believe you're here for me," I said. "We want to be here," they smiled. I found myself journeying into outer space, alone in the dark expanse of nothingness. As I look back on my life, so much of it was spent crawling through despair or wanting to die to end a suffering worse than death. Back in the room, my sitter's gentle hands rested on my heart and my shoulder. Sometimes I just held her hand. Suddenly, I could see far into the universe and just how much matter there was in space between the emptiness. Billions of specks of glimmering light. I could see how luminous space was when seen as a whole. And parts of me, long exiled, felt for the first time what it was like to not be alone. I never saw my mother's face when I desperately needed to see it, when it meant life or death, and parts of me did die. For so long, it was her absence that filled my world. Now I saw her and gazed into her eyes as she gazed into mine. She was so young. 16 years old. She is my mom, my universe. During the integration circle afterward, we were asked to finish with an affirmation we would take with us from the session. Mine came to me immediately. The universe is luminous, and I belong in it.